analysis, and digital experience platforms. As a co-founder and director of Corporate Technology, he plays a pivotal role in driving innovation in AI-powered digital signages solution. I believe people are through with their tea and coffee. We now begin session which will explore the deep-rooted cultural connections between India and Sri Lanka, ties that have flourished for centuries through history, trade and shared traditions. So we can start.
You can hear me loud and clear now. Well, let me begin by thanking the organizers, Dr. Naresh Bana, who has been my golfing partner also for many years, decided that I must be invited for this. And he talks to me very often about the stuff that he's doing. So I'm delighted to be here and share this session on cultural connect, traditional cultural connect between India and Sri Lanka. Now, as you all know that the neighborhood has been a very significant factor in even in ancient strategic thought in India. Kautilya's Mandala theory and various other things, if some of you have read, talks about the neighborhood, how to deal with it, how the neighborhood factors into your policies. And of course, Kautilya's times were different, and we live in different times in a more interconnected, globalized world. But to be honest, I think the Indian subcontinent has still not taken off in terms of trade, for example. The trade that India does with its neighbors is around 5% of India's total trade. And so we trade with the rest of the world, but not so much with our neighbors, which is not the factor in other areas of the world, in other geographies, where neighbors tend to trade much more with each other. I suppose we can blame it on our history or on various other things, but I think that realization obviously has sunk in years ago, and so many things have changed since then. Technology is also helping us. In terms of cultural legacy, I think we all know that, and we've all grown up with the story of King Ashok sending his son and daughter to Sri Lanka, after which the Buddhism sort of took root there, thanks to King Devanampiya Tissa. Now, if you remember, Devanampiya is a name that even King Ashok used in his inscriptions. I mean, in his various pillar and other inscriptions. So there is, of course, that connect which is there, the religious connect. But the world today is far more sophisticated, and the connections are across many sectors. India and Sri Lanka have had a very vibrant kind of cultural connect. The Buddhist circuit, as we call it here, attracts a lot of Sri Lankans to visit India. Tourism is another very major link. So we'll explore these connectivities, as we call it, which makes the relationship so unique. And so the questions that we will cover are how have Indian and Sri Lankan languages, performing arts and literary traditions influenced each other over time? What are some shared festivals, cuisines, or traditional practices that highlight the cultural bond between the two nations? How have historical trade routes and migration shaped the cultural exchange between India and Sri Lanka? In what ways have Indian and Sri Lankan music and fashion influenced each other in modern times. I thought I would throw in Bollywood also in this mixture, and then we can discuss these things. Our esteemed panelists have all been introduced, and so I now throw it open and would request Mr. Desanayaka to have a go at anything that he feels out of these questions, if he wants to reflect on these.
Thank you, sir. I have a written kind of a statement, but I am going to speak my mind here. So, when it comes to, first of all, as a Sri Lankan, one of the most important thing is Buddhism. And as Sir said, the great Emperor Ashoka sent his son and daughter to Sri Lanka to propagate Buddhism. And it was also kind of a strategic move that King Devanam Piyatissa, actually it's kind of like a name which indicates that we are under the ambit of Mauryan Empire, kind of like. It's kind of a guarantee kind of a thing. So it was kind of a strategic move during that time. And the other thing is, like in general what you say, if you look at the history of Sri Lanka, we have a 2,500 years old history, written history, the Chronicle Mahavansha. Actually, the Indian historians use the Chronicle Mahavansha to set up the timelines. So that was that helpful. And also, like, I always have a question, like, when you are situated near to a big country, it's a major feat to be independent for like 2,500 years. Of course, there were like invasions from the Indian entities like 17 times. Even during the Chola period, we were only under them for like 60 years and we remained independent. And that's why we are not the 29th state in a way. So, of course, we have a lot of things in common. And if you look at the language, southern India, majority speaks Tamil, and also the northern part of Sri Lanka speaks Tamil, and of course there are some little variations in the language. Our people say that their Tamil is much refined. I don't know the truth because I'm not an expert of languages, but thanks to Bollywood, I can understand most of the things you say in Hindi. So, my mother tongue is Sinhalese, and our language is also based on Sanskrit. So, there are similarities. So, भाषाओं की निकटता महसूस करने के लिए मैं 10 तक गिनूंगा. So, I'll count to 10 to show the similarity. So, it is ek in Hindi, eka in Sri Lanka, do, deka, teen, tuna, char, hatar, panch, paha, che, haya, saat, hatar, aat, atar, no, name, das, dahaya. So, there are similarities. Even like if you use old Gali like tuj, kami, tuj, papi, dush, that kind of words, then of course not Maki Wali Gali, but that kind of things, a Sinhalese person would understand because of the Sanskrit connection. So when it comes to like dance and that kind of things, like Bharatanatyam, they have a tradition of temple tradition, and also we have a Kandyan dance which also follows this temple tradition. So there are that kind of similarities when it comes to dance. And also when you look at the music, like Sri Lankan culture, Sri Lankan classical music is actually heavily influenced by the Carnatic music. And also Bollywood has an effect on these kind of things. Even I can understand Hindi because of Bollywood. So I don't have a formal education in Hindi, but still I can understand most of the stuff you say. because of Bollywood. So and also like when it comes to like one other thing I forgot, like most of Sri Lanka and Kerala has most similarities because of historic reasons also. I mean, during the Chola period also, Chera was with Sinhalese to fight against the Cholas, so that kind of history is there. And also, when it comes to cuisine, like appam, idiyappam, that kind of stuff, we also have in Sri Lanka. Those are because of Tamil influence. And also, there is a martial art called Angampur, which has a similar kind of a thing in Kerala, what you call Karalipaya. So these kind of similarities we have, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. And indeed, one is sort of forced to say that if you can understand your Galis in your own languages, then you are really close. Which shows that how close we are. And of course, it's not from today, but it is from thousands of years. And it's. But he said something that talked about invasions from India. I mean, that history is well known, etc. But one of the problems in our neighborhood policy is how to deal with asymmetry. That is, because India is the largest country in the subcontinent, and the others are smaller, hence. So asymmetry has impacts on how we deal with the other countries and how they look at us. So those are some of the things, but here we, I think, have to discuss more about, but thanks I mentioned Bollywood because that is supposed to be one of India's, soft power all over the world, I think, that is there. And people speak Hindi. I was High Commissioner in Bangladesh and everybody there speaks Hindi. So I said, why do you speak Hindi? He says, we watch Bollywood. So that is one of the things that we must remember, that Bollywood is also not just song and dance. It is also about a certain cultural and soft power, as it is called in diplomacy. So Himanshu, you can jump in now.
It's a privilege, sir. Thank you, Pinak sir, for this opportunity. Respected Jishan sir, Vijay sir. It's a great privilege to be here, and we are having this interaction, very interesting, and it's almost a lot to learn, in fact, in the last 1 hour. This interaction is happening at a time when Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in the process of visiting Sri Lanka again. Why I mention this point is that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has already visited Sri Lanka 3 times, I think in the last 10 years. This is his 4th visit. The significance of the effort that he has made to actually take the new India-Sri Lanka relations to a different higher trajectory is that when he first visited Sri Lanka after becoming Prime Minister in 2015, he was the first Prime Minister to make a standalone visit after 1987. So you can understand the growing significance of Sri Lanka in India's foreign policy objectives, and the fact that Sri Lanka has a central place in India's neighborhood first policy. Couple of things on what steps are being planned to take all these cultural, religious affinities and historical consciousness that people in India and Sri Lanka have. I just mentioned 5 points, the new points of agreement where both the countries have taken the next big step when it comes to culture and tourism development. When the Sri Lankan president was here in December, he had a very important meeting with Prime Minister Modi, and the joint statement that was issued, I'll just mention 5 points. It details the blueprint of the kind of forward movement we can expect when Prime Minister Modi is in Sri Lanka next month. First, enhancing air connectivity to various destinations in India and Sri Lanka, while noting the successful resumption of flights between Chennai and Jaffna. I was just discussing with Jishan sir that tourism is a reflection of the historical shared history that people of India and Sri Lanka have, and a lot of interest that Indians have in going to Sri Lanka. If you just look at the data, in October 2024, this is from Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority. You'll get plethora of data on this website. It says that in October 2024, the number of Indian tourists who visited Sri Lanka was 36,417, which was 26.8% of the total tourist arrivals in Sri Lanka. So out of every 4 persons who visited Sri Lanka in October last year, 1 was an Indian. And if you just look at the increase, the quantum jump that's reflected in the tourism arrivals from India, January to October 2023, the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority data shows the number of Indians who visited Sri Lanka was 228,532. But 1 year later, in January to October 2024, the number increased to 322,973. That's almost 95,000 increase in 1 year alone. That shows the potential, and that is why I mentioned this joint statement, which is, I think, in a way, a very structured blueprint of what more needs to be done to further facilitate this process. So enhancing air connectivity to various destinations in India and Sri Lanka, continuing discussions on development of airports in Sri Lanka. Now, as you know, in India there is a big Udan scheme that is in place where small cities and towns, as a news correspondent, I frequently visit these places, and I remember when Narendra Modi became Prime Minister, 2 editors who came from Gujarat told me that one of the first thing you will see is the redevelopment of airports in smaller towns and cities. He's always been pushing for air connectivity, and that's again reflected in the blueprint that is outlined in the joint statement. Promoting Indian investments for development of tourism infrastructure in Sri Lanka. India, one of the biggest foreign investors in Sri Lanka, and as Sir has mentioned, the potential is not reflected in the data. $5.5 billion, I think, was the trade, bilateral trade, in FY 2023-24. Must have increased by now. But Sir Jishan sir just informed me that the Economic and Technology Cooperation Agreement, called the ETCA, after 14 rounds of negotiations, we can expect some important movement on this front. And I think that will lay the foundation of the point that Pinak sir was saying, that in terms of bilateral trade, there's a lot of space that exists. Promoting Indian investment, I mentioned establishing a facilitatory framework for development of religious and cultural tourism. Remember, all these points that I'm mentioning are a reflection of the intent of Indian and the Sri Lankan governments to further build up on the historicity of the bilateral relations, 2,500-year-old interaction. Now, there seems to be a desperation to further build up on this, and promoting academic linkages between educational institutions for the promotion and advancement of cultural and linguistic ties between the two countries. This is an institutional step, I think, to further facilitate. Marvas, I was talking about scholarships. I was seeing that there's already more than 700 scholarships India gives, and the cultural cooperation as of now includes establishment of Indian Gallery at the International Buddhist Museum in Kandy, a beautiful place that I had the privilege to visit when I was there to attend a conference. And I remember in that conference, the kind of interactions we were having. I mean, this is a subject which is not mentioned here, which was climate change and disasters. The tsunami of 2004 changed the landscape when it came to disaster management. India then made a law in Disaster Management Act. And I remember when I was preparing my research presentation for the Colombo conference, I found it very important to see that Sri Lanka already had a full-fledged ministry on climate change. At that time, India did not have, but now we have environment and climate change. But Sri Lanka had a dedicated ministry. So I think this is also the historicity of climate adaptation, of historical communities in both India and Sri Lanka, especially in the southern states, and what more they can do actually to further build up. So these are some of the points I wanted. The dance forms, the point has been mentioned here. just a couple of things. Sri Lanka's Kandyan dance and Kolam plays have South Indian origins, we know that. But over the centuries, these have transformed and now have a distinctly Sri Lankan character. This shows the historical affinity. Then on the Kathak dance tradition, a point has been made. Kathak originated in North India, found its way to Sri Lanka during the Mughal period. And now over time, Kathak has developed its own distinct style in Sri Lanka called the Kandyan dance, blending Indian and Sri Lankan aesthetics, footwork and hand gestures. Then Indian classical dance forms, Bharatnatyam, Kathak, Odissi, Mohiniyattam have influenced Sri Lanka dance traditions, resulting in unique adaptations and interpretations. And this has been a very, very vibrant cultural, diplomatic, economic, political relationship between India and Sri Lanka, and we should expect forward movement on many of these areas in which there is tremendous potential when Prime Minister Modi is in Sri Lanka next month. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Himanshu. I was just thinking while he was speaking that when we look at a relationship between our country and another country, sometimes we try to break it down into certain sectors or domains. One, of course, is government to government, where you set the structures of cooperation through agreements. The major one after that is business to business. Then we now talk about people to people. So there are many domains that you can carve out to plan your sort of policy and strategy. But let me come back to the point that I made that our trade in the subcontinent between ourselves is so low, and why is that so, and what we need to do to increase that. And there is a good deal of scope here through investments and trade and various other connectivities we have talked about, and which is very important, because if you don't facilitate the movement of goods and transportation, then that connectivity basically becomes, or the lack of connectivity basically becomes a hurdle in trade. And how to reduce the terms of trade in the sense of the cost of trade, as we call it, taking a container from one point A to point B, how much does it cost, and whether we can make it cheaper in some ways or the other. Now, technology is a very important aspect, and Vijay comes from that domain, and so we shall turn to him to understand his views on all the subjects that are listed here. And so, Vijay.
Thank you very much. I would talk a little bit about cultural, how the technology can help cultural exchange. So there are so many ways which are still being applied almost pretty much everywhere, but there are a number of other ways we can start doing. So translation is very common, as we use, Google did a lot of good work with that. Language learning platforms, as the trade grows, the need for bilingual people will be required. So language learning platforms, then storytelling. The one very important aspect I believe for culture is that the folklores and adaptation of those things into mainstream digital creations, including video games. So those things, apart from, including arts and augmented reality, virtual reality, which are very popular, especially on the tourist destinations right now. Sri Lanka can adopt that a lot, and for the sake of awareness, they can launch these apps and things that, suppose I want to take a tour on some tourist place in Lanka, I just go to a website, put on my goggles and see what is there. So multiple applications there, collaborative music projects you can do. Social media campaigns, I think there are already many people are active, and there's always a scope for more. then interactive apps and other platforms that can maybe teach music, dance forms, or folk games and other things. Cultural exchange portals, and then of course history. So there are interactive portals we can make that can teach history with the things, so many things we mentioned here, some of the very interesting things. Then heritage tours, virtually, digital archives. These things are, I believe, there in some Wikipedia or other forms, but there is no dedicated single portal publicized on the social media platforms that young people can go and get some interest. So those are the, plus cuisines, something which very natural goes into from one culture to another culture. Recipe apps and virtual cooking classes, food blogs, and I mean myself, I'm a company which we work on a smart digital signage, which can be of which one of the ways out of the to increase awareness about your tourist destinations, your any kind of information that you want to provide to tourists before the tourism or during that. You can gather a lot of information on the patterns of how tourists go, where do they go, how to optimize things like walkways and all those things. So yeah, there are a number of numerous ways. I believe the one most natural way I think people should start is music is one of the things which online music things, which I believe being is so everybody Pakistani music is very popular in India for probably for the Hindi reasons, but again Sri Lanka being so close to India, we should have more closer collaborations with the music sector. Of course, using technology, there are so many ways. Dances, and of course, as I mentioned, the games and all those things. So yeah, at the high level, those are things comes to my mind. But yeah, at the implementation level, there are so many other ways we can with our technology to simplify things, to enhance the experience of people across culture. Thank you.
Thank you, Vijay. I mean, we all know that we live in a digital age, and we are now entering or have entered the age of artificial intelligence, and where that will finally take us, who nobody knows really. And so I think the digital space and the digital, tools that we have can also contribute to many of these, integrating some of the cultural and other factors between the two countries. And it's a domain where, the sky is the limit. You can think of anything today, and that can be digitized and put somewhere to give people access. So I think we've covered quite a lot. Maybe I would have loved to hear more about cuisines, but he only mentioned appam. I'm sure there's many more things that we can do. And fashion, of course, we are not very fashion conscious, and so I think we skipped that part about fashion. But I don't know whether such jackets are worn in Sri Lanka anymore, or we only wear it nowadays in India. We've changed this fashion actually, because earlier we used to wear bangala and suits, and today I can see my colleague, former High Commissioner Yash Sinha, and also wearing a half jacket that I am wearing. So fashion changes. So I think there's so many aspects that we can talk about. But I think we've come to the end of our sort of session, and she's looking at me very, saying that you better stop now. So I will. Thank you very much.
He has been set up at the University of Kelania and Sabaran Gamua University. Varied academic and cultural activities initiated in about 30 universities, schools and peer neighbors of Sri Lanka. So, of course, I think we need to also popularize and make people aware that these opportunities exist.
If you go to the website and read about the activities of the Vivekananda Cultural Center in Colombo, you will see a lot more information, and you will understand what is happening and how much is being done. But as I said, that I put in a caveat again, government has limitations of budget, etc. I mean, 700 he mentioned, I would like to give it to 5,000, but where's the money going to come from? Who will pay for the scholarships? So there are restrictions and constraints. I think my good friend and colleague, Ambassador Yash Sinha is here, and he was our High Commissioner in Colombo, and we could not have a better person, and he wanted to make a comment. Okay, that's better. In fact, you can address it better than I ever can. So I think that is now. I think we have to close this. I'm sorry, but I've already exceeded the time. They will not give me lunch if I go further. Thank you very much.
Well, I would like to sum up this panel discussions by just saying diversity is not about how we differ. It is about embracing one another's uniqueness. Thank you, esteemed panelists, for this insightful discussions. Thank you so much. May I now call upon Lieutenant General Rumba and our Vice Chairman Naresh Banaji to facilitate our panelists.
So please look, sir, please.
Oh.
Thank you. Sir, please look here.
Thank you so much. You too.